Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the town board meeting, workshop and town board meeting for April 8th. I'd like to welcome everyone, especially the family and friends of our police, our new police sergeants and lieutenant. We'd like to congratulate everyone, and at this time, I'll ask everyone to rise as the Town of Ramapo Police Honor Guard brings in the colors.
Honor Guard, present the colors.
Left turn. Up.
We're going to have some of the children of the officers who are going to be promoted do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if they're ready to come on up. Are there any? Oh, here they come. Okay.
Detail. Present.
There you go. Ready? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Up. Up.
Thank you. Please be seated. I'll ask our deputy town clerk to call the roll.
Councilman Weissmandel.
Here.
Councilman Rossman. Deputy Supervisor Charles. Councilman Wanunu. Supervisor Speck.
Here. The first item on the agenda is for the Personnel Department. Ms. Condon, I believe you have some resolutions to propose to us.
I do. Our first resolution is a resolution to appoint Anthony Giardina to the vacant position of Police Lieutenant effective April 9th.
Thank you, Ms. Condon. Any discussion or questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Moved.
Motion by Councilman Weissmandel, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 3-0. Congratulations, Lieutenant Giardina. Ms. Condon, is there another resolution from the Personnel Department?
Our second resolution appoints 3 officers to the position of sergeant. It's Officer Sean Lee, Edward Pascocello, and Andre Sanchez, effective April 9th, 2019.
Any questions from the board for Ms. Condon? Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Wanunu to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Weissmandel. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carries 3-0. Congratulations, Sergeants Lee, Pascocello, and Sanchez. If I could just very briefly say that having had the pleasure to work with our new lieutenant and our new sergeants, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of all the board. They are exemplary officers. They are part of what makes us the greatest police department I believe, in the United States, the safest town in the Northeast, if not the United States, and they're continuing a fine tradition within this town of service to the public. So again, we just extend our congratulations to the officers, their family, and friends that are here tonight. Chief?
Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it on behalf of the men and women of this department. Let me tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Giardina. He's here tonight with his wife, Beth. They've been married for 25 years. His daughter, Justine, is here as well. She's a recent advertising design major from FIT. His son, Jeremy, unfortunately could not attend tonight. He's away at college in SUNY Oneonta. He has another son with him tonight, Ryan, who's a junior at Suffern High School. Anthony's been a town of Ramapo resident for over 25 years. He graduated from Pearl River High School. He holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in finance, as well as an MBA in management from Pace University. Lieutenant Giardina began his career with the NYPD. In 1998, he was hired by the town of Ramapo Police Department, where he spent his first 19 years assigned to the patrol division, first, of course, as an officer, then a field training officer, and then a sergeant, which he was promoted to in 2011. In 2017, I assigned, at the time, Sergeant Giardina to be our Emergency Communications Center Sergeant. During his tenure with our agency, Lieutenant Giardina has received multiple commendations for his police work. He has also overseen our summer internship program for the past 8 years. And his most recent accomplishment was taking our agency through the most difficult of tasks, which is to go through a reaccreditation assessment at our station. And the good news is, by all accounts, everything was in great shape, and that's a credit to you, Lieutenant Giardina. After you're promoted, you're going to be reassigned back to patrol, your old home, and he will be in charge of a patrol squad. So at this point, I'd like to have his wife, Beth, come up, who's going to pin the shield on Lieutenant Giardina. Okay. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our newest sergeant, one of three, Sergeant Sean Lee. Sean was born and raised in the village of Wesley Hills. He graduated from Ramapo High School in 1987. He graduated from Rockland Community College with an associate's degree as well. His parents, Gerald and Joanna Lee, and his siblings are here tonight, Eileen, Kevin, Siobhan, and Kerry. Sean is married to Heather Lee and has 3 daughters, Jenna, Kira, and Mackenzie. Sean started his career in law enforcement with the Village of Highland Falls Police Department in September of 1995. In February of 98, he was appointed to the Rockland County Sheriff's Department as a patrol deputy. We hired Sean in June of 2000. He was assigned to patrol until April of 2018, when I assigned him to the traffic safety unit as one of our traffic officers. Not an easy job. Sean is a member of the Ramapo Police Honor Guard. He's a crash reconstructionist with the department's crash investigation unit. He's a field training officer, a recruit mentor, and a peer trainer for the department's computerized dispatch system and records management system. His wife, Heather, is here with the daughters, Kira and Mackenzie. Also here with us today is his parents, of course, his in-laws, Raymond and Sally Buteau, his brother, Kevin, and wife, Tammy Lee, his sister, Kerry Fitzgerald, and his brother-in-law, Will Reinmuth. And pinning the shield on will be Heather. Sergeant Pasquicello, Ed Pasquicello, is a lifelong resident of Rockland County, graduated from Albertus Magnus High School in Bardonia, and received his bachelor's degree in sociology from the University at Albany. Ed began his career in 1996 with the New York City Police Department, where he was promoted to the position of sergeant in 2001. At the time, he was assigned to the 48th Precinct in the Bronx before coming to the town of Ramapo Police Department. Eddie served this department well as a patrol officer, and for nearly the past year, I had him assigned to the Rockland County Narcotics Task Force. It was a nice event today where Eddie was honored by the members of the task force as well as the district attorney for your service over there. Captain Riley and I attended. It was really a wonderful thing to experience. So I know they're going to miss you, Eddie. Okay. Ed is a third-generation police officer, with both his father and grandfather retiring from the Emergency Services Unit of the NYPD. With him tonight is his wife, Suzanne, his mother, Claire Pasquicello, and his sister, Kristen Sheehan. Also with him tonight is his mother-in-law, Suzanne Byrne, and sister-in-law, Kelly Byrne. And pinning, of course, will be done by Suzanne, right? So Andre Sanchez, Sergeant Sanchez, grew up in Suffern. He graduated from Suffern High School in 1998. He received his police science degree from Rockland Community College. Andre was a dispatcher, or started as a dispatcher with the Suffern Police Department in 1999, where he worked until we hired him in 2005. During his time on patrol, he's done a lot of different things. You probably all know him as one of our canine officers. The good news is the dog is staying with him, okay? So the dog will continue to work with Andre Sanchez in his position as a patrol sergeant and will still be out in the field doing what it does best. But Andre also was an adopt-a-cop officer with our agency. He is a field training officer, as you know, canine officer since 2011. And he's received numerous awards for drug arrest and DWI enforcement. Some of them, the dog had a role in. Present for tonight's ceremony is his girlfriend, Heather, his stepdaughters, Sienna and Madison, his mother, Maria, his sister, Michelle, and her husband, Enrique. And pinning tonight will be Heather. If I could indulge the board to do one more thing on
Please,
behalf of the
Chief.
police department.
Absolutely.
One of the nicest things that we can do is to carry on the tradition of passing on a shield from a police officer or member of the department who served with honor and distinction when they retire to their son or daughter. Tonight, I'm really very proud to have two retired detectives here tonight to present their sons with their shields, and they will wear them throughout their career to recognize their dad's service. So without further ado, I'll start with Detective Budnick, retired Detective Budnick, and here he comes, and his son Gregory. Okay. All right. Okay. Kirk, thank you for your service to the department and the men and women that you worked with, appreciated it, but more importantly, the people that we served did. And you had some really good cases in your career, I'll tell you that. Thank you. And Detective Thomas Burns retired. Boy, I never thought I'd hear that, retired. And his son Christopher. All right. Good job. So I worked with Tom for a long time, and I want to thank you, Tommy, as well, for your service to the department and to the people that we served. And you, too, throughout your career, had some pretty wild cases, and you did a wonderful job serving the department. Thank you. So, Mr. Supervisor, now we have to have the formal swearing in, if that's okay with you.
Please.
So we'll start with Lieutenant Giardina. And Lieutenant, if you'd like to come up, and you'll be sworn in, and then we'll do the sergeants.
I raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
Speak up.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, that I will faithfully enforce the laws of the state of New York and the county of Rockland, and the laws of the town of Ramapo, that I will abide by the rules and regulations of the town of Ramapo Police Department and its code of conduct. And to the best of my ability, I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office and my position as Police Lieutenant of the town of Ramapo Police Department. So help me God. Congratulations.
So happy for you.
Change my glasses. And now we'll swear in the three sergeants.
And repeat after me. I, please state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, that I will faithfully enforce the laws of the state of New York and the County of Rockland and the laws of the Town of Ramapo. That I will abide by the rules and regulations of the Town of Ramapo Police Department and its code of conduct. And to the best of my ability, I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office and my position as police sergeant of the Town of Ramapo Police Department. So help me God. Congratulations.
So while they're signing the oaths of office, if the board would like to do a photo when they're done, if we come down. But I have to tell you, I noticed, I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing a lot of old friends and retired members of the department. Of course, and I'm not going to pick out people by name, but I just want to thank you for coming, even in retirement, to support the department. And it's very much appreciated. As well as the men and women of the department that are employed who came tonight also to support these new promoted supervisors. Thank you. Okay. Photos in the center? I would say in the center. You can all go into the center with a couple photos. Yeah. Thank you very much. I will, but I'm letting you guys. Thank you again. So I said it earlier when I met privately with the families and the officers who are going to be promoted, and I will say it here publicly. I want to thank the board on behalf of the department for your support, for the assistance that you provide to me as chief, and for the opportunity to continue to make promotions and bring on new members for our agency. It's very important and very much appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep. And at this point, the police portion of the meeting is concluded. If you'd like, I could excuse everybody for, we take 2 minutes to get everybody out, and we'll start up from there. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay? You're excused. All right, guys. It's all good.
If they want to.
Dropped it off. One of the,
I think Yeah, we're good. Okay. I propose, unless there's any objection from the board, that we combine the workshop and the town board meeting into one meeting. I think we have a unanimous decision on that. Very good. Then the next item will be public participation. Is there anyone? Yes, Mr. Romanowski, and again, I'll remind the public, we have a 3-minute time frame.
Robert Romanowski, 183 Maple Avenue, Muncie. The last time you passed this resolution, reduction of general fund deficit, it says, whereas the audited 2015 financial statements of the town of Ramapo show a general fund deficit for the amount of $8,792,691 as of December 31st, 2015. And whereas the deficit primarily results from losses, transfers, and advances taken by a prior administration. I looked up the word prior, and it means before. And how could this be a prior administration? A member of the town board on 2015, this is done, is still on the town board and is running for re-election. Mrs. Charles was on the board, and where was she in 2015 when this was going on? Are you trying to blame this on a prior administration? The people who were there are still here. Look at another one. Mr. Yitzi Ullman was also on the town board in 2015 when this deficit was happened. Where is he? He's still here. In fact, he was promoted to receiver of taxes at a salary of $157,000, along with now he has a town vehicle. It looks like in this town that either complacency or incompetence pays off. People who say nothing. I see nothing of those two either at the trial of Christopher St. Lawrence. Whereas Councilman Patrick Withers went through 3 grueling days of testimony, and he knew what was going on. Why didn't anyone else know what was going on? It shows that in this town, things are absolutely backwards. People who do the right thing are punished. Either in Pat's case, he became unelectable, or in the case of Melissa Reamer, who continued to say that there was fraud, and obviously there was fraud because a federal jury convicted the former supervisor on 20 counts. And you were here too, Mr. Specht. Where were you when this situation was going on? You were prosecuting someone who came out and spoke against what was going on and was, in my opinion, vindicated by a federal jury. So to say this is from a prior administration, that's not true. And I think that Mrs. Charles, who's still on the board, has a lot of explaining to do as to where she was in 2015 when all this was going on. We haven't heard nothing from her about it. And I think maybe during the comments tonight, during the council members' comments, we should begin to hear something. It's not a prior administration, it's the administration that's still here.
Very good. Next, anyone else wish to speak?
Good. I feel like I'm playing basketball. Deborah Munitz, 5 Rose Hill Road. Just a quick question. I actually sent an email to the supervisor about this matter, and it's regarding, I think, item 4D. The agenda was changed today regarding the acceptance of the FEIS. I know that you're going to be setting a public hearing. It wasn't on the agenda for this weekend, but now it's on the agenda. In Mr. Stolman's letter, he did indicate there is a legal minimum for 10 days, but I wanted to raise the request from the public that all the materials be made available and posted to the website so that the public has access. The public has not had access despite other requests, numerous requests since last fall, to the comments, which I just received today for the first time, and to the FEIS itself, which I know Michael Miller asked for. At this town board meeting in early February, there was a letter from Mr. Stolman that was read that night, indicating that the FEIS actually had been received in December, and so Mr. Miller tried to get a copy of it. He was turned down. I've been trying to get a copy of it since the end of February, and I understand that the town still doesn't have it in PDF form to release. So at a minimum, and now I know that there's a new version, I would like to ask that the town make that available to the public online and provide 6 weeks to review it. The town's they've had since last August to review the various comments, and they've had since December to review this very voluminous binder, and I think it would be reasonable to give the public 6 weeks from the posting of that material online to at least come back and be able to make intelligent comments. And to include all comments and reviews of the DEIS by town professionals and by the FEIS by town professionals as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion to close public participation? Motion by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. We'll go on. Item 3 is going to be off. This was put on erroneously. We're not prepared at this time. We need further review of the proposed amendment, and we need to speak with the Director of Parks and Recreation. Then we'll go to item 4, Town Attorney's agenda. Ms. Gittleman.
Yes, so item 4A is a settlement claim the town made against a driver of a vehicle that was involved in an automobile accident with a police vehicle, causing got 3 proposals. The town central garage has left the body shop that they appropriate to make the repairs. We did make the claim for that amount, and the insurance company for the other driver has reimbursed the full amount of the negotiated price for the repair of the vehicle. So we're asking for the town board to vote to accept that as a settlement.
Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you.
If I may, just for procedural purposes, which the town attorney's office had put into place previously, because we have to follow our purchasing procedure, we have to recommend that as well. I concur that I did review these things. I don't know why it's not in the resolution, but I would agree with them that
You would
should
concur
forward.
in the amount would be correct to
Correct.
make us whole.
And I'll make sure the attorney's office and I review that procedure again.
Going
just so there's
forward.
a consistency in how we do it.
Thank you very much.
Do they pay for a replacement vehicle during that time?
No, there was no claim that we needed a replacement vehicle. I guess there were other police vehicles available. There was no need to, it was not actual police vehicle, so it wouldn't be like we could rent one or anything like that. So they just would have used another available vehicle that was, that was not in use.
Any further questions? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. We'll go on to item B.
Item B is settlement of a tax certiorari matter. The petitioner is Mosdos Torah, seeking a tax exemption, has been reviewed by my office, and we are recommending that the board grant the 100% exemption.
And your office has looked into it and determined that's the appropriate settlement.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Gittleman? I'll call for a motion to approve. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 4-0. Item C?
Item 4C is the approval of an agreement with Grand Fondo of New York. This is an agreement that we've had for a number of years with Grand Fondo, who sponsors
Can I interrupt you
a...
for 1 second?
Yes.
On Grand Fondo? On all of them? You know what? Let me find out. Yeah, well, sure. We just have one issue. When these items were provided, do we have a 24-hour rule issue with any of the items on the agenda? And if so, we would need to do a waiver.
Well, I think they were on the agenda, but feel free to waive the 24-hour rule in total, in case you missed it, to move it for every item.
Yeah, there might be, one or two might have
Right,
come in
so I'm
under the
saying
24 hours. I
just,
think, right. Councilman Wanunu pointed that out.
Right.
So why don't we I'll suggest we do a motion to waive our 24-hour rule for tonight's agenda.
Any items that were
That were not posted 24 hours in advance. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded Councilman Wanunu. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Opposed, carries 4-0. So I'm sorry, so we'll go back.
Okay, item 4C
Yeah.
is an approval and agreement with Gran Fondo. They sponsor a bicycle race through the town, and we enter into agreement with them on a yearly basis where they agree to reimburse us for the cost of any police services that they require in the course of the race. And also they agree to provide appropriate insurance to the town. So once again, they've asked of the chief of police to provide such police services, and the resolution would be to approve an agreement on a form which my office will approve.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Gittleman? Motion to approve? Motion of Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. Go to item 4D.
Item 4D is the acceptance of the FEIS on a project known as Pascack Ridge.
I think we have Mr. Stolman present. I'm going to ask Mr. Stolman if you could address this item for us, please.
Sure. This is actually regarding the Pascack Ridge and Collishaw Comprehensive Plan Amendment and zone change. And we've been working closely, really guiding the applicant's consultants with respect to the preparation of a final environmental impact statement. And we, as I said, we've been working closely with them. We believe that that document dated April 4th is finally there. So we've drafted a resolution which we recommend that the town board adopt. And the resolution would essentially do three things. And let me just quickly read these three items from the resolution. First, pursuant to the state environmental quality review regulations, the town board, serving as lead agency, finds that the final environmental impact statement prepared for the proposed action and dated April 4, 2019, is accepted as being, and these are the key words, satisfactory with respect to scope, content, and adequacy. Secondly, the town board hereby directs the filing of a notice of completion and the FEIS as required by seeker. And third, the town board hereby establishes a comment period on the FEIS for X number of calendar days following the filing of the notice of completion in the FEIS for involved and interested agencies and the public to consider the FEIS. And we have to fill in that blank, that X, and it has to be at least 10 days.
What is your recommendation? What would be appropriate or reasonable?
I would say somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks, something like that.
Very good.
Seeker says that has to be a minimum of 10, so that's sort of a guideline.
Mr. Supervisor, might I recommend that you read the actual resolution as we've done in the past into the record?
Yeah, I could
The
do
attorney,
that.
yeah.
I'll do that. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the action which the town board is entertaining is the Pascack Ridge and Collishaw Comprehensive Plan Amendment and zone change from R15 to MR12, the proposed action, and whereas the town board has determined that pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, Part 617 NYCRR, commonly known as CEQA, the proposed action is a direct action of the town board for which there are no other involved agencies, and the town board is therefore by default the lead agency for this action. And whereas pursuant to the state environmental quality review regulations, the town board require the preparation of a final environmental impact statement for the proposed action. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. The town board hereby adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as fully set forth and resolved herein. 2, pursuant to the state environmental quality review regulations, the town board hereby finds that the final environmental impact statement prepared for the proposed action and dated April 4th, 2019, is accepted as being satisfactory with respect to its scope, content, and adequacy. 3, the town board hereby directs the filing of a notice of completion and the FEIS as required by the CEQA. 4, the town board hereby establishes a comment period on the FEIS for blank calendar days following the filing of the notice of completion and the FEIS for involved and interested agencies and the public to consider the FEIS. Do we have any,
Actually,
anything further, Mr.
Yeah, if I
Stone?
could provide a little bit more guidance. The SEQA regulations actually say that within 30 days of the filing of the notice of completion and the FEIS, the town board is supposed to draft and adopt a finding statement, which is actually sort of a distillation of the environmental impact statement and its findings down to, 20, 30 pages, something like that. So within 30 calendar days of filing the FEIS and the notice of completion, the town board is supposed to draft and adopt a finding statement, which we can prepare, and take action with respect to the comprehensive plan amendment and zone change. So when you're considering whether it should be, how much more than 10 days it should be, I think you should consider that you are supposed to, within 30 days, actually adopt a finding statement and take action with respect to the project.
So your suggestion of between 2 and 4 weeks would fall within that, the 30 days?
Well,
Yeah.
4 weeks is outside of it.
Outside.
I would say,
Okay,
given what I just said, let me
Yeah.
sort of correct myself. I would say between, something like 2 or 3 weeks.
would be
max.
appropriate?
Yes.
Very good. That will give us enough time to adopt the statement within the 30 days.
It'll give the agencies adequate time to review the document, the public adequate time to review the document, and time for you to act within the 30-day time period to adopt a finding statement and take action with respect to the project.
Thank you, Mr. Stallman. Any questions for Mr. Stallman by the board?
Just what is the process for notifying the agencies?
Well, we've drafted a notice of completion, and that's actually going to be sent with the document to the various agencies. I don't have a copy of it with me, but it's going to go to all the agencies who received the draft environmental impact statement. It's going to go into the Finkelstein Library. It's going to go on the town's website. So it's actually going to be transmitted to these agencies, plus put on the town's website, plus being put in the library.
That happens
And
electronically?
available here at Town Hall as well.
It gets transmitted electronically?
Probably not, no. It'll go onto the website electronically, but a paper document will be transmitted or sent to the agencies, and then we'll get a receipt from each agency.
How long does that take until that happens?
A few days.
You as in 2 days, 4 days, a week?
Well, it depends how quickly the applicant provides us with the copies we need. We need probably a dozen or so copies, and then how long it takes to get them to the agencies. But the clock doesn't really start until they get filed. So we'll consider the filing when they actually are in the hands of the agencies, as opposed to worrying about how long it may take to actually get the documents made and transmitted to the agencies. So the clock will start when they're actually filed with the agencies.
So whatever time period we set will run from that period.
Yeah, that's why it's worded that way,
Got it.
so that we're not saying the written comment period is going to end on such and such a date and worry about how long it's going to take to produce the documents and get them into the hands of the agencies. The clock will start X number of days following filing of the document with the
And
agencies.
that's for the agencies. What about for the public?
Same thing with the public.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, what we can do is put, as we've done in the past, a special section of the website for this specific purpose. We can put public notification up there once we have confirmation from Mr. Stallman that it is in the hands of the agency, and we can make an email address specifically for public comment off of that site, if that will make it more transparent and easily available to the public to make comment.
And the document will be available PDF on the website.
Yeah, I don't think it's available on PDF. I believe it'll send you to another site, which it will be available because it's too large of a file.
We're
But
talking
yes,
about not just the notice of completion, but the FEIS.
the full
will be available.
FEIS will be available on a link to our website.
Very good.
And public comment will be accepted off a link from our website.
Is it also available here at the town if somebody wants to come?
Yes, it will be.
Great. Any,
On the question, shouldn't we remove that space for days and then change it into the wording of,
right, we have to pick a
Yes,
date. We
that-
have to pick a time frame.
Right.
yeah, that, I don't.
It says X calendar days or blank calendar days following the filing of the notice of completion in the FEIS. So,
We file the notice?
I'm sorry?
The town files the notice?
We'll make sure it gets all filed properly.
Who files the actual notice?
Who's responsible for filing it? Yeah.
Well, very often the applicant is responsible for filing it, and they have to produce receipts. Either that can happen, or we can do it for you if you'd like, if you'd be more comfortable us doing it for you.
If it's the applicant's responsibility, then
It generally is,
But the time won't run until it's filed.
right.
they notify us that it was filed and
And they provide the receipts of filing.
the
Very good.
clock begins to tick.
And then the clock begins when they are filed.
But then how do we know whether they were staggered in terms of their filing?
If, like, in other words, one agency today, another agency
I guess we pick the
tomorrow.
latest date.
We've never had that problem in the last 40 years of seeker, but it's quite possible they could be submitted over a couple of days. I would go with the
The last
latest
date.
date.
of course.
It takes
You
a
know,
day
we're
or
not trying to shorten the period.
No,
We're
no.
not trying to,
One goes to deliver, they set out and they deliver
Right.
it.
yeah, very often they're delivered by Federal Express or something like that, or some sort of overnight
Or
mail,
courier.
and then you have a receipt that it was actually delivered.
So you can still fill in the date because it's set the
Well,
number of calendar days.
Right, it's not a date, it's not a date, it's a matter of days, whatever
Right.
period of
So I think Mr.
time we
Stallman
want
was
to
saying
put.
anywhere between 14 and 21 days
Right.
from the date of the,
Right. For
I
example,
would-
if we were to do this, we wouldn't deliver them all by hand. We would go to the post office and get receipts for mailing. You know, we'd get receipts showing when they
Right.
got there, something like that. We do that all in one day, and then, you know, they'd be delivered a couple of days later.
There's a presumption if
Worst-case
they're mailed,
scenario.
they'll be delivered within 5 days or whatever.
Sure,
Mr.
sure.
Stallman, what happens, I've seen this happen before, where a specific agency would come to the town and say, we need a little more time to respond.
Well,
We have
these-
the
these-
30-day requirement that you mentioned.
These
the
timeframes
seeker-
in seeker are really guidelines. They're not like walking into the town clerk's office and getting a default subdivision approval when the planning board doesn't act within a certain number of days of closing a public hearing. It's not like that at all. If you wanted to extend the time frame for whatever good
We
reason
have
you
the
have,
authority to do
you
that.
could do that, and no hammer would come down on the town board in that case.
So we could pick, say, a 3-week period tonight, and if something came up, we could add a later board meeting, extend it if need be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good. Any further discussion or questions from the board for Mr. Stolman? Then I'll call for a motion. My recommendation, my preference is that we put the 3-week timeframe, 21 days, and we include that in the resolution.
I have a recommendation of 29 days.
29 days?
Yes.
Let me ask, though, because I said 4 weeks, and then I know Mr. Stolman said that would not be enough time. That would be 28 days. That would put us too close. Is-
Again, these are,
you needed-
the timeframes in seeker are guidelines. So
Right.
it says within 30 days, adopt a finding statement and take
Right.
action. If you didn't do it in 30 days, you did it a little later,
There's no,
there's no hammer that comes down.
Consequence.
There's no default approval of any
Oh, there's
sort.
no, okay.
well, what does the rest of the board feel? I suggest 21. You,
Well, then
Deputy
that's
Superintendent,
fine.
anyone have another opinion? Then I'll ask someone to make a motion.
My experience has taught me that everyone waits till the last 2 days, and that's when they review it. I don't think 21 or 29.
So whatever day we pick is going to be the last 2 days.
I'll move it.
Very good.
I'll go with whatever your recommendation is, Supervisor.
I based it on Mr. Stallman's
Mrs. Stone,
timeframe. but
21,
I think
29.
21 days is fine.
Okay.
From the filing of the document.
Very good. So there's a motion to approve, accept the FEIS, and set a 21-day comment period following filing of the notice of completion and the FEIS. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Weissmandl. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0.
Mr. Supervisor, when the town gets it in its hands in digital format, even though we might not have the receipt of completion, with the board's consent, we can put that up.
I would prefer that. Thank you.
Should put it up as soon as possible.
Correct.
Absolutely, as soon
That's
as
what
we
I'm
have it.
asking for
Absolutely.
permission.
And we'll have the notice of completion done tomorrow or the next day.
Oh,
Right.
very good.
Stallman, could you just, for my benefit and the benefit of the board, walk us through the next steps in this process?
Sure, sure. Besides this written comment period that you've established, as I mentioned before, the seeker regulations say that within 30 days of the filing of the document, which is going to happen within the next week, let's say, within 30 days of that, the town board is supposed to draft and adopt a finding statement, which, as I said, is a distillation of the environmental impact statement and your findings down to about 20, 30 pages, something on that order of magnitude. You draft and adopt that, and then within that same time frame, 30 days, you're supposed to be taking action with respect to the proposed comp plan amendment and zone change.
That's when the town board would potentially vote on the actual.
Right, you've had your public hearing on those two documents, the amendments to those two documents. You had your public hearing on the draft environmental impact statement. So within a fairly short, within a month or so of the filing of the document, you're supposed to be, according to the seeker regulations, adopting a finding statement and taking action with respect to the proposed amendments. And that ends your role in the process. Then they would make application subsequent to that to the planning board for site plan approval, presumably.
Thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
Anybody have any further questions, Mr. Stolman? No, thank you again for being here tonight.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. We'll move on to item 4D, Ms. Gittleman.
4E is a approval of a hardship waiver for property at 17 Robert Road. The applicant is asking for the board to waive the provisions moratorium to allow him to proceed with an application, and he's attached to the resolution is their letter explaining the basis of their application.
I'm going to just read the letter, it's brief, out loud, so the board has it and the public has it before it. This is a request for a waiver from the town board to allow the applicant to apply for site plan approval. The property is located on 17 Robert Road, currently serving the surrounding area as a community prayer room and the rabbi's residence. The building is existing and is currently being used for said use, and no changes, construction, and drainage are being proposed. The applicant would like to start the process of legalizing the house of worship as soon as possible so he can clear the violations and bring the property in full compliance. Signed, Mayor Jacobowitz. Any discussion from the board?
Where are we time-wise with our,
Our moratorium runs unless extended until the end of this month, I believe,
okay.
approximately.
What do I think we discussed this?
We might have discussed it at a workshop.
We didn't?
No, not this, we had a similar.
You had received a letter prior to this, and
It
the
was in
letter
our
was
box
updated.
at
That's
the
right.
last meeting.
It was
so
not
You were
before
probably
us.
looking at it during the meeting.
I think it came in before the police commission meeting held last week, so it was probably, you probably had it at that time during that meeting, but we didn't discuss it. So,
So in lieu of the date, Supervisor, that you just mentioned, that would be the completion of that time? Is it necessary to move forward?
well, it's 3 weeks approximately away.
Right.
I don't think it's significant time in either direction. I understand their point that it's for a prayer room that is apparently in violation, so they want to do what they can to legalize it, which is always commendable.
I think if you put them off another month, Mr. Supervisor, it's going to put them at the back of the queue, and
Yeah.
these are the ones that we specifically have asked that they move forward on these particular types.
I think the fact that it's already existing and they're not proposing anything new speaks in favor of, my opinion, of granting it, because it will then allow them sooner rather than later to get out of violation and eliminate a violation, which we always try to accomplish. Does anyone have a different thought? Then I'll call for a motion. Motion to approve by Councilman Nunu, seconded by Councilman Weissmandl. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 4-0, so we will grant them that waiver. We'll go to item F.
Item 4F is an agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension to provide community-wide education regarding stormwater matters at a fee of $7,300. It's being recommended by Ted Zarinko, who's here tonight in case the board has any questions about the agreement.
Very good. Anyone from the board wish to have Mr. Zarinko speak about this?
I'd just like to understand what this is.
Then why don't we have him come up, Mr. Zarinko, and explain it?
I think we're talking about the Cornell Cooperative Extension Agreement. Every year, since 2004, the town has entered an agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension, along with the other towns and villages in Rockland County. We're all part of the Stormwater Consortium of Rockland County. It's not part of Rockland County government. It's all the towns and the villages banding together to work together to implement the stormwater regulations promulgated by DEC. The cost to the town this year is going up $500. It's the first price increase since 2004. It makes us eligible for grants. The consortium bands together and applies for grant money. And last year alone, we received about $12,000, $12,474. This year, we were scheduled for at least $6,700, and there's a possibility of getting even more grant money that way. It's been a good thing for all the municipalities involved, the public participation outreach, the public participation and involvement, and the good housekeeping for municipal operations. Cornell really helps us out with that, and we don't have to dedicate our own personnel for that.
Is this a requirement that we're filling, or is this just a additional outreach program?
I have a tough time hearing. Could you just?
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is this a mandatory outreach that we have to provide regardless?
Yes, yeah, this is mandatory through the state DEC. It's part of the Phase 2 stormwater regulations. There's 6 measures: public participation, or excuse me, it's public education and outreach, where we notify the public of what is good practice for stormwater management, and they do this on behalf of all the consortium members. Public participation and involvement gets the public involved in the process. That's minimum control measure number 2.
Where would I have seen something like that? I don't remember seeing any like outreach or anything like that. Do we advertise it someplace? Do we do it in town hall? What kind of education?
We have flyers that are available. We have public service announcements that are put out. There's both on the radio and through the internet. There's flyers that are sent out to communities. We've done
Training people not to do or how to do what?
how to safely manage our vital resources with regard to stormwater. Okay, so that we don't pollute the stormwater that is good for the environment, basically.
Great, thank you. Any,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Thank
Councilman.
you. That's okay.
Oh, good. If there's nothing further from the board, then I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Nunu. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. And we'll go out to item G, adoption of alcohol and drug policy.
Yes, so item 4G and item 4H are related. That we're proposing an amendment to the town's alcohol and drug policy, as well as the town's federally mandated DOT alcohol and drug policy. Issue was brought to the town's attention by Partners in Safety, who provides the town with DOT mandated services, alerted us to the federal mandate regarding the use of CBD oils, which is a marijuana-derived product, and that our DOT operators are prohibited by federal legislation from using such a product. And in fact, Linda Condon has related that, not that she's gotten a lot of inquiry, but she has had an inquiry from an employee about whether these products are permissible. So it was thought that we certainly have to amend our federally mandated DOT policy to include the prohibition against DOT oils and other marijuana-derived products. And so under item 4H, the policy is attached, and under item section 1.4, it now includes use, possess, or be under the influence of marijuana, including THC, CBD oils, and other marijuana-derived products as being a prohibition. And it was thought to similarly amend our regular alcohol and drug policy for all other non-DOT employees that, it was thought that it was best to prohibit such use of that
So does
drug.
this have to go to the union? Do they have
They
to?
approve
The union has already been circulated to the union. They have no problem with the,
Right.
And do we add this to now
inclusion.
to the random drug testing? I think we.
Well, the random drug testing for the DOT employees it's already included in that. And
For these new
Correct.
items?
Yes. So we would ask that the board, it's the same language in each, to include the CBD oils under items 4G and 4H. So we're asking the board to approve the amendment of both of those policies.
Very good. Any further questions from Ms. Gittleman? Then I'll call for a motion to approve, first under 4G, the adoption.
It's the same penalties, I would assume, as the other products?
Nothing has, yes, nothing has changed with respect to any part of the policies
No, for
except
these, for
inclusion.
these items, they would have the same penalty as?
That's correct.
Great.
Marijuana was already included. It's just the inclusion
oil.
of these, like, derivative products.
So we'll call for a motion to approve the adoption of the alcohol and drug policy. Motion by Councilman Nunu, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. And now for 4H, I'll call for a motion to adopt the federally mandated DOT alcohol and drug policy for safety-sensitive employees. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Nunu. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 4-0 as well. Thank you, Ms. Gittleman.
Thank you.
We'll now turn to item 5, purchasing. Ms. Montel, you could walk us through 5A, rejection of a bid.
Right, so as you know, we've gone out for a bid for safety modifications to Town Hall, basically putting bollards in certain places. Unfortunately, the bidder did not include a specific page, so we're going to have to go out and rebid this. So we're asking you to reject the sole bid, and I will go out for bid again.
Any questions for Ms. Montel? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Nunu. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. We'll go to item 5B, bid for purchase of calcium hypochlorite tablets.
We didn't receive any bids, so.
That's right, that's good news.
We haven't received any, so we're gonna ask you to go out to bid again.
Very good. Seems straightforward. Is there a motion? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Nunu. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed?
What happens if you don't get any bids? You
Carries
just go
4-0.
online?
No, I can look on state contract. We should try to go local if possible. I'm not sure why nobody bid, but.
Maybe they're not aware of it? And you need
Maybe,
names?
we do outreach. It could have just been a glitch. We'll see what's up when we
If
go
you want
out.
to give me the bid, I have one.
Sure.
You know, just let me know.
Sure.
Send it.
We'll go to item 5C, acceptance of proposal for the Route 306 to Edison Court sanitary sewer replacement project.
As you see in the resolution, Mr. Zorinko solicited proposals in order to survey Route 306 and Edison Court. As you know, this is an area which we've discussed before, and we're asking you to accept the proposal from Atzel, Nasher, and Ziegler in the amount of $7,900. And the source of funds will be the bond related to, that we have, I believe, from the sewer, for the upgrade of the sewer system.
Very good. Any questions for Ms.
Oh.
Montel?
We're responsible, not the developer over there?
This is an area, it's not an individual one spot. This is that big GHD report, so this is going to give you the means of dealing with that whole area.
Does this report take into consideration the current development that's being?
I believe it does, but Mr. Zorinko is here, and he
Oh.
can talk about it.
Yeah, Ted, if you could just explain this to us.
This project would be in the area of going north to Edison Court, two manhole runs. One is about 700, or excuse me, one's about 400 feet, the other one's about 30 feet. And ties into the county system. It's one of the projects we look to do jointly with the Rockland County Sewer District because it would involve construction on Route 306, and we wanted to do that jointly with, so Route 306 will only be ripped up once. The Sewer District, however, does not want to do the project at this time. This is one of the projects that was talked about as
Settlement?
Yes.
that the Sewer District wanted the town to do for other considerations.
I will share with the town board that the chairman of the sewer district has told us that they will put the balance of the project on the top of their priority list. Our supervisor sits on that commission, district, whatever it's called.
District.
District. And they are going to move that along. But in order for us to start, you can see that there is, that Atzel's quote is substantially less than everybody else's, and we feel that the value is there to move forward. And we will be applying for grants under the new CAFR for this, and even the new requirements of the state and the governor's mission is that we have moved along with a project that we submit to them for grant. And they're very interested in infrastructure grants. So in the past, it has precluded us from going for the grant. This time it'll be points in our favor to get grant money to do this. And
But my question again, does this study include the build-out of the project that's currently?
This will be at full build-out under current zoning. So there's properties that are owned by individual owners, individual property owners, and not developers. And they're by right, they're entitled to build on their property, redevelop their own properties. This takes care of that.
I'm talking specifically the project under construction right now. by the corner, Cursing Parkway, I think it's called the Commons.
That, the project is Blueberry Commons, yeah.
It was included in the GHG
Blue-
report.
Blueberry Commons won't tie into this line.
Yeah.
Blueberry Commons is lower in elevation. It will tie into the county's line that runs parallel to this and heads toward like Lake Suzanne. But it doesn't tie into here because
This goes up towards
this is how.
Calvert, right? This goes up towards Calvert, and this goes the other way.
This
Dover.
this runs up toward Calvert, and actually goes past Calvert to almost Ralph Boulevard.
What does this pick up? The west side of 306?
It picks up from 306 approximately Ralph Boulevard and heads north. Everything to the west of that on the ridge line,
And the east side of 306 is going the other way?
Calvert and a little bit of Cedar Lane
And the
ties
east-
into this.
The east side of 306 goes the other way?
Yeah, that goes the other way. Yeah.
This is Edison, Wiener.
This takes Wiener, Butterman. There's some Oakwood Terrace in there in the Village of Kaiser.
I think there's a map attached to your packet.
I just wanted to know about this
I
development.
don't think I included a map in this one.
Oh, I
The
did.
proposals
Okay.
for the survey had a map.
It's
Correct.
just a
But that
survey.
was not the entire area.
Right.
Okay? That was not the entire area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Zrinko or Ms. Montel? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve. Motion by Councilman Onunu, seconded Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 4-0.
I just have, I'm sorry, a quick question
sure.
for purchasing. So this was supposed to be a joint project between us and the sewer district, and now we're doing it ourselves? I misunderstood
Not
that
this
one.
one.
This one will not be a joint
will not be
project. The
joint.
sewer
This
district.
is our project.
No.
This one is ours. We will,
This is part of the settlement?
no.
No, this is not within the sewer
This
district.
is what was discussed potentially, but we found out it is not within the sewer district.
Oh, so it's our line?
Yes.
Right,
But
that's our
we-
responsibility.
But we have been informed and have had contact with the state in reference potentially doing a grant for the full infrastructure, 80/20 grant. And we do have funds in our bonds in order to be able to begin this project.
So while we're on this subject, who and how do we prioritize the recommendations of this report that, just mentioning, I've asked for it a few times and still have not received it?
Yeah, the town contracted with GHD, who's the same engineer that does engineering work for the sewer districts as well. They did a study of 10 critical areas in the town. They set up flow meters, and those areas were selected based on the individual applications that came in for development in certain areas, okay? The areas that we knew where the sewer reports came in showed it looks like there might be a problem. We studied what was actually there. They monitored the existing sewers in rainfall events. There weren't too many when they monitored them. We had a drought that year. But they identified the areas that are most critical to the town at full build-out. The number one project was the Waverly Place, going from Crown and Cedar down through Dover Terrace.
I'm
to
sorry,
Waverly
you say
Place.
number one. Who
That was
established those numbers?
That was the one that showed, based on the evaluation GHD submitted to us, that was the most critical area.
Could you
The
give me-
second
Second one was this 306 to
So
Edison
they
Court.
established the hierarchy of demand?
Yeah.
They created a list based on numbers?
Yeah,
This is priority one, this is priority two.
They showed these are the most priorities. These are the highest priorities, yeah.
But in a
I-
specific order?
Ms. Montel?
I think that, can you get a digital copy of the report to
Yeah,
Councilman?
we'll get you a copy of that report. That's the one you were asking for?
There were two areas, this one and the one just north, I guess it's west, east?
It's west of this.
West.
It was the Waverly Place area.
Southwest.
Yeah, So what
Yeah.
happened here was that the county decided that no further permits would be issued in this area if we didn't begin the process. We met with Mr. Zarinko, Mr. Sadowski. I think GHD was on the phone.
GHG was
Was
there.
even there.
We
And we
had
came up
GHG
with, at that time, I believe this was last year, came up with a priority of how we
So
wanted to move
2018, yeah.
forward. Because the need was there and people were in the midst of projects
Yeah.
but being held up. And we agreed at that point in time that we would begin to move forward with these. We secured that we had a source of funds to start the projects. So in answer to your question, this town board did not make that determination. GHD gave a priority of 3 different ones where there was a push because permits were being held. That's why this particular one was moved forward faster than all of the others. In addition to that, the sewer district at one point in time thought they would be able to move forward with us with this. They could not, but the town has gotten the request and the proposals to begin the process to move forward with this. I think that the $7,900 that we're going to invest, we probably have to invest anyway. And if the town board determines not to move forward after that, you'll be able to do so.
No, I think we need to move forward. I'm just trying to understand the process and the prioritizing.
Right.
Okay, I will get you a copy of
I
both
appreciate
reports.
that.
Okay?
Thank you.
I'll give it for the whole board.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why don't we go on now to item 5D,
Well, did you
acceptance?
vote, we voted?
I thought we did.
Sorry about
I
that.
believe
Yeah,
we did.
we did.
We did.
Yeah.
Item 5D, acceptance of proposal for a survey for bridge replacement at the Sloatsburg Cemetery.
Why don't we have Mr. Zarinko do that as well?
Absolutely.
The Sloatsburg Cemetery falls under the jurisdiction of the town. There's an access road off of Eagle Valley Road that crosses the Nacomo Brook. There's a culvert that crosses it, and the culvert's in very bad shape. By state law, the town is required to maintain it. We've gone out for a proposal to survey the existing access road. We're recommending the lowest proposal from Sporacco and Youngblood of $9,900. The new culvert will be wide enough to carry a fire truck. There's other houses that share that same driveway that the town is responsible for to get to their own homes.
Whose cemetery is it?
It's the Sloatsburg Cemetery.
Who owns it? The town owns it?
I think we do.
No, the town
No,
doesn't
so we're
own it,
not
but
responsible for it?
we're responsible for it.
Right.
Yeah,
Why?
it's a state law.
Right, we take possession of abandoned
And it's
cemeteries.
an abandoned cemetery.
Oh.
Right, so by law, we are the owners.
And this is a walking bridge or a driving bridge?
I don't know that there's active burials there now.
It's in the
It's-
bridge
it-
that we're talking about here.
It's the bridge, it's a culvert, it's not a bridge.
It's a
But
culvert.
yeah, it's similar to a bridge. It's a crossing of the Nacomo Brook. It's about
It says
10
survey
feet,
for
it's about
bridge.
10 feet wide.
It says survey for bridge replacement.
It should,
Yeah.
it should
It's just
say,
the culvert?
well, I think it depends on how big it is, Ted. I don't know what they call it. If it needs to be amended, we'll amend it.
I'd like to know what I'm voting on. I mean, I
We
know
look at
this
the-
is just a survey.
The RFP refers to a culvert/bridge.
Right.
It's a culvert,
Okay.
okay?
What's the bridge going to?
And,
Cemetery.
Leads to the cemetery.
There's a map,
They-
there's a
they-
map attached.
yeah.
But so what, is it a walking bridge or is it
It's a road. It's like one of
I
those
think you
big
could drive over it. I
circles that
believe it's-
you-
It's,
Is it
it's a
an
driveway that crosses a stream.
Is it an active cemetery still? I mean, people still.
No, it's
No.
it's not active.
So should we be placing like, just like a walking bridge if somebody wants to get to it?
No,
Do we need a big-
No,
Sorry?
I don't think we're allowed to do that.
No.
no, the bridge, excuse me, the culvert, I'm sorry. The culvert provides access across the brook. There's people, there's houses with people that live in them on the other side of the brook from Eagle Valley Road.
It's going to people as well. It's not.
Yes, they have rights to use that access road.
But that
okay?
access road is owned by who?
They have access to.
Who owns the access road?
The town owns the access. The town is responsible for it.
It's part of the
by state
cemetery.
law.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's two different things. I think the councilman's asking who owns it, and you're saying who's responsible. Who owns that?
My question is other people.
I don't know. Part of what they're going to do is they're going to do a title search on this and see who actually owns what. That's part of the task that they're going to perform in the survey.
Private road, then why is the town eating this alone?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we will get you further information in reference to this. I think this battle took place several years ago, and we lost.
I believe you're right. I believe
Similar
there was
to
a
the Hilburn Bridge.
determination that we own it.
Correct. Believe me, we did not
We're
want
certainly
to move
responsible for it.
forward in terms of doing this, but I think it was mandated that we do. But since it's a new administration here, Mr. Zarinko, if you could please provide the town board, the new town board, with all of the information regarding the particular subject matter, that would be helpful to them. If the board feels that they would like to defer decision on this until you have that information, I would say that there's no emergency
There's no rush.
that I know of.
I would like to defer for another reason. Actually, it caught my eye that the proposal from Spiraco and Youngblood is half the price from Brooker and Atzel. I noticed, just by glancing at it, that Atzel and Brooker included wetland delineation services, which is part of our RFP requirements. Youngblood specifically doesn't. And that alone could be
Yeah.
$2,000. So I wonder if this is really,
An
if
accurate-
there's a brook,
yeah.
we should be delineating the wetlands. So somebody needs to look. Who reviewed this? Which department?
So, not me,
That wasn't the question.
Yes, I believe that this was issued by Mr. Zarinko's department directly.
Somebody has to look at it
So
again.
why don't we do that? Why don't we, Ted, if you could look into that and just review it and give us maybe a brief memo about that issue.
Yeah, I'll send you a memo on that.
We don't need a memo.
Our department evaluated this when we spoke to all the engineers all the surveyors that submitted proposals. They've covered all the work that was in the RFP. So,
So I'm pointing out to you
but
that the wetlands is
I will come back to you with a revised memo on that.
Very good.
I think the councilman's saying it's not an apples-to-apples comparison.
Right, and I guess the concern, we have a concern that if there is a need for wetlands delineation and it's not done, we have a problem, or if there's an additional fee, it's not an apples.
If we don't need it, then let's ask the others to
Then
change
then they
it.
might have overestimated.
Well, I think number
yeah.
3 says we did need it, doesn't it?
So I think we need to clear up that discrepancy.
Usually, if you're doing work over a pond,
All right, why don't we table this for another meeting, and you'll give us an update.
Okay.
Very good, then we'll move on to the last item on your agenda, Ms. Montel, which is
Yes.
discussion, purchase of a lot adjacent to the pavilion.
So before we do that, if you don't mind, I would just like to report back to the board on the status of the funds due from Orange and Rockland in reference to police services.
Oh,
An amount
good.
that is about $45,000.
you said a week. It's only
Yeah, you're
3
ahead of
days.
schedule.
So
4 days early.
Orange and Rockland sincerely apologizes for the delay and is cutting the check this week. We anticipate having the $45,000.
Wonderful news.
Over the course of the next few
Thank
days.
you, that was great.
Discussion in reference to the purchase of lot adjacent. So the Pine Valley, or the Pavilion, had requested on several occasions that they would like to purchase from us interest in a site, and which is the town owns, which had been used for, I believe, a retention pond at one point in time, or something like that. And I received just recently another letter from them sent to me by certified mail, and therefore I'm bringing it to the board's attention, that they had requested in August regarding the adjacent lot. I do believe there was an opinion from our DPW department that there was a problem with it, and then doing so, but I figured if the board directs it to be revisited, then the town attorney's office couldn't and should revisit it, because there was a difference of opinion. Our prior town attorney had given one opinion, our DPW had given another opinion.
Define prior. I'm sorry, I'm
Michael
joking.
Klein.
I can weigh in on it, because I'm familiar with it.
Great.
So I don't think they're actually, they're not really, those two opinions are not.
Mutually
Correct.
exclusive.
Oh.
In other words, Mr. Zarinko actually had, when I sent the original request to him, or maybe not the original, but a recent request about it, he had pointed out that the property that they're looking at is actually, quite problematic in terms of the fact that was this detention or retention pond, and it was
Part of the subdivision.
part of the subdivision, and any development of it would obviously have to go to our boards and would require like an extensive plan about how this issue was going to be addressed. And he alerted me to the fact that, Alan Berman at that time was working obviously for the town and would have information about the earlier subdivision that created this lot. And I did speak with Alan, and he pointed out to me that it was part of the, it was an average density subdivision, so the property had in fact at that time received its maximum development potential. So any, that his opinion was it really could not be developed because it had already been considered and set aside as part of the original subdivision that created the lot. So there wasn't mutually exclusive, there were problems with it, but then there was not a legal opinion about it.
So I
correct?
will say that the individual, the organization requesting it had specifically said that it's not for the development purposes, but rather to include as the area, so.
I could just jump in. I want to disclaim first that I will abstain on this item. I actually did construction for Pine Valley, so I will not partake in any vote on this particular or part of the conversation, but I would like to provide information to the board because I was involved with the approvals for the Pine Valley expansion a number of years ago. It was actually two events that triggered this interest in this piece of property. One was a comment from the planning board back when they went for the expansion. They'd like to see them increase the bulk of the property. And I don't remember who it was specifically, but said that the town has this piece of property. Apparently, when they did the Hillcrest subdivision many years ago in the 60s or 70s, it was an average density subdivision. This lot was a piece of wetlands, and it was dedicated to the town just because nobody else wanted it. And it was recommended that Pine Valley should try to acquire it from the town. They contacted the town, and then conversation died out. The second time it came up for a more prudent conversation was during, I don't know, it was Sandy or subsequent storm
Irene.
event. Irene, it was during Irene. During Irene, Pine Valley flooded out the entrance. Not apparently, the way Pine Valley drains, there's a little pond right in the front of the property. It goes under the parking entrance, and it comes through our wetlands property. And there's a big culvert that crosses 45. Apparently, it's one of many Ramapo properties, and we don't get around to maintaining it as frequently as we'd like to. They got flooded out. They couldn't get emergency vehicles in or out, and for a good number of hours, there was no access in or out of the site, and it was a big problem. They contacted the town again at that point with the request they'd like to take over this property so that they can maintain it and have more control over the egress and ingress of this property. The attorney is correct. If they were to want to develop it, they would have to go through the normal planning process, but I don't think it's developable from a development perspective. I believe most of it is wet, but it would increase the bulk and give them the control of the in
Their
and out of
entrance.
the property.
Of their entrance.
Do you know the approximate acreage?
It's not that, I think it's less, I probably have
It's okay if you don't have it, it's fine.
The question is whether, I think the real question is whether we're barred from selling it because it was part of this.
Subdivision.
But what the councilman is saying is it might not have been, and it might not have been for the bulk. It might not have been for whatever Janice said it was. It might have been just that this was a piece they were getting rid of and their average density didn't include that. So we'd have to go
Well,
back and get that
My
file.
question is, even if it did include it, why is that prohibiting?
Right.
If they're not
I
going to
don't know.
develop it.
It's 2.28 acres, by the way.
Okay.
2.28?
So I think
Yeah.
there's some legal issues that we need to resolve, whether that was included, and if it is, does that prevent it being sold as long as there's no development on it? I'm assuming if they want it just for the purpose of increasing their size, they could take it with some covenant that it can't be developed.
And it almost sounds like it's a win-win. First, we'll
If
get
that's
paid
the
for it.
case,
and
yeah,
second
if
of all,
it's
we're
not
gonna
gonna
get somebody who's
change-
gonna take care of it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly. If they're going to maintain it, if it's not going to change the way it's used. But let's perhaps table this. We'll have a
I just wanted to
further
bring it up and
study.
ask you to move forward,
Yeah.
that I can move forward, finding out with our attorney's office and anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
whether there is any possibility, and I want to respond to the company that we are doing our
Actively looking at it.
research, not just
Absolutely.
ignoring their request.
So why don't we do that? I mean, I don't think there's any harm in that, and we'll have the town attorney's office to research and advise us on whether it can or can't be sold under those conditions.
While we're on the subject, I've actually had 2 inquiries in the last 2 weeks from residents, constituents, that have, both of these cases were individuals that had 10 feet or 20 feet at the edge of their property that happens to be owned by the town, and they want to know what is the process for acquiring said piece.
So they send me a letter, because I'm in charge of surplus of everything, including land, and they would send me a letter, and we would have it, either we would do the appraisal, or they could submit comparables, and then I would bring it to the town board for discussion. A price is set based upon the market value, or they can make an offer for a price. If it's only a piece that's relevant to one particular lot, then it's handled just like that. We come up with a fair market value price. The board surpluses it and sells it, does not have to go out to bid. Not at any point in time does any land have to go out for a bid. However, if there's more than one adjoining property owner, we've had an issue where we have sent it out because we did have an issue. So in one case that you're talking about, I believe that's on Remsen and Maple, Remsen and Highview. That does not touch anybody else. It's a very odd shape, the road there. So I'm not sure if they've sent the letter, but we would need it on a map to show us exactly what they're talking about, because the only way you can surplus it is if you have, a description of what we're trying to surplus.
That particular one was very unique. Apparently, this individual was a recommendation from CDRC
Did they buy it?
that he buy the piece. I don't know why they didn't, as part of the planning
Yeah.
process, send it
That's
to us.
interesting. They could have.
But they
right.
approved the
Before.
planning, approved it,
Hmm.
went back, was reapproved, and now he's trying to figure out how to buy the piece.
Are these what's called gores?
One of the
Yeah.
gores is one of the ones we have a problem with. This is not.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
actually,
This is
doesn't even make sense why it was
basically
done that way.
Remsen Avenue from the street before Highview. I'm not sure, is that Hilltop, Treetop, one of them.
One of them.
From there to the intersection of Remsen, our road has an additional 25 feet of right-of-way.
Oh. Where did that come from?
But it doesn't continue.
No, just for that section.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense,
No.
and it wasn't the average
No.
density. And it wasn't done by the prior administration.
Or previously. Thank you. Very good. Then let's move on to the last item on the agenda, which is Parks and Recreation Agreement with Blue World Day Camp. Can you inform us as to?
Yes, I absolutely can. Every year, well, not every year, several years, we've allowed Blue Brill Day Camp to park at Saddle River Pool from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., July through August, and you can see here what it is. We get $2,000 from that.
I recall the PD being dispatched to this pool because of a shortage of space and
In the pool,
overcrowding.
in the pool.
In the pool there were
Not the
issues
parking
with.
lot?
Not the parking lot.
I was going
Sure.
to ask that. We haven't had a problem with parking in
I
the summer?
specifically recall a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't with parking, but it was definitely capacity of the pool.
I know there are issues with out-of-state people coming and fights breaking out.
Yeah, can we get just
to be said.
Yes, so I think Michelle
Is this
gave you a
time
list.
sensitive?
What?
Is this time sensitive?
No, as far as I'm
Wait 2
concerned, you
weeks,
can wait.
or a few weeks.
We get
yeah.
Michelle to just advise
Confirm.
us on
Yes,
Yeah, I think we'd all hate to do this and then have complaints that people can't park.
right, and I
In
just
the
wanted
summer.
to bring up one more item, which we had
Sure.
briefly
Before you go
discussed.
there, could you say, once we're on the pool, I know we were working out something as far as residents, non-residents. Now that we're going through the pool season, do we want to address what
Sure.
our plans are for this summer?
We
So I
left,
think we'll have a meeting, I'll have Michelle come to the next workshop. I think we had a
I think
policy.
at the last discussion.
We did.
But I remember we left that we're gonna monitor it carefully, but not do anything yet.
And we changed the way in which we do our fee schedule.
Right, the fee structure.
Which I'd like to mention, I'd like to commend the town clerk's office. Over the course of the next few days, you're going to be receiving a town-wide fee schedule for a review of the town board for a variety of different fees. And then you'll have that available for discussion. And I have requested that 3 invoices which were below my threshold to pay, to authorize, but we did have a discussion at the town board prior to this in reference to the Cultural Arts Center. I would ask indulgence of the town board. I will make a full report at the next town board meeting, but I would appreciate it if you would allow me to pay those few invoices. They were out of our neighborhood parks and recreation department. It was for safety reasons, for the lighting, some electrical, and although I don't believe I need a board resolution, I wanted to publicly make sure that by the consensus of the board, that there was no problem, and any further expenses until such time as you make a final determination will, other than the utilities, nothing else will take place. This process has begun before that determination had been made. I will say that the purchase orders were issued after you said that. It was my mistake, I didn't catch that, but I would ask that the board allow me to continue to process it.
Is this gonna trigger a budget transfer?
No, it's paid out of what's called the neighborhood parks and recreation.
So we don't have to amend the budget.
No, and it didn't come out of what you will call tax dollars. These come out of the money that developers give for recreational purposes. The Cultural Arts Center is considered one of those. I will tell you that to date, I believe that from January until now, approximately $16,000 has been brought in revenue. I don't have the full expenditures yet in front of me. We are closely monitoring it, and I will come back to the board with a full report at your next workshop.
Thank you, Ms.
So if
Montel.
you'll indulge me to allow me to pay this, I won't ask for a resolution because it is allowable under my threshold.
Very good. Could the board?
Anybody have a?
Could the board indulge Ms. Montel on this? We're very indulgent.
Hearing no.
No one's saying not to.
I would say thank you very much.
Very good. Then I'm going to just, at this point, although it was omitted from the agenda, councilperson's comments, if any members of the board would like to make any comments? Seeing none, supervisor's report. I'm just going to state that I want to commend our town receiver of taxes, Iskak Holman. I think he does an excellent job on behalf of both the town and excellent service to the members of the public. I've seen him operate his office in an efficient, courteous manner, and I just felt it should be said. So thank you, Mr. Ullman. And in the future, I'll be attempting to, whenever I see a town employee or officer acting diligently, I will mention that at town board meetings.
That includes board members?
Always. It goes without saying that we all are. Absolutely.
Especially our traffic committee.
Always, yes. I will, again, I've done it before.
Our insurance committee,
I will commend
our
all of our
parks
town members for
recreation
all of their involvement in our various committees and really working hard and taking their responsibilities with the utmost of
Thank you to our deputy clerk for being here.
We appreciate you
You're
being here.
welcome.
Thank you to Ms. Gittleman for
It
being
just
here.
came to my attention, I didn't realize that Chris pays for these.
Yes.
Out of his pocket?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's very
I didn't
generous.
either. I like-
And I was beating him up last.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm going to propose that we all chip in and reimburse him, and he shouldn't have to, he shouldn't have to pay that out of his pocket.
I've been haggling him about this.
That's very nice of him. I did not know that.
And his little candy jar, I was just informed, he buys that too.
I think we should all take up a collection and,
Pass the
hey,
hat.
definitely, it's,
Or the boots.
that's very nice of him. So I'm going to commend our town clerk as well for always taking care of us.
I'm writing it down now.
And at this
Reed,
point,
is there a fridge that this goes in?
Yes, right over here.
There's a little fridge here.
There's a fridge
But it's not always plugged in.
We don't want to waste electricity.
Why is that butter?
I have no idea, there's other boards.
I'm going to this time call for a motion to adjourn. We can continue this conversation afterwards.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? We stand adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Good meeting.
Thank you.